You don't know how to.
It never used to be awkward starting.
How do you start that?
You don't. That's the problem. I think we just did.
Yeah. I guess that's it. Huh?
So it was cool seeing you the other night.
Yeah, fancy running into you on the east side, huh?
That is true. That is true. But I mean, dude, it's funny. Like, we've known each other for
14 years,
something like that. When did you start coming to Detroit?
2001.
Yeah, so that would have been
first show. Really, the first, or maybe it was the second proper Telefon Tel Aviv show was the Detroit Contemporary.
Okay, that one I was not at.
Yeah, that was like summer 2001.
Okay,
it was before the first record came out.
Right. Who booked that?
Oh, God,
do you remember?
I don't remember. It was us, Stars as Eyes, and Sex, Ryan Kidwell.
Okay. And
I wonder what he's doing now.
I have no idea.
He's probably doing music for commercials and he's rich or something. I don't know. Smart guy. I don't remember who booked it. Yeah, it was.
Were you like hooked up with Detroit by then? Were you hooked up with like Ghostly or
not? I hadn't met the Ghostly guys yet. We met the Ghostly guys, I think, shortly after Fahrenheit came out, and Rob Theakston was still working for Ghostly. He was day-to-day at the time.
Wait, Rob worked for Ghostly?
Oh, yeah. That's how I met Theakston.
I don't even remember that. I remember working for Planet E.
I mean, it was like ancient. He worked for Planet E, I think, after he worked.
I don't even think I did. Should we call him? Double check
should
that?
Call Theakston before Rob Theakston, I'll never forget it. This must have been 2001 because it was in the old hefty office on Hubbard. And they like called ahead and said, "Hey, we're in town. We'd love to stop by and say hey."
Mm-hmm.
John Hughes was like, "Yeah, sure, come by." And Rob Theakston rolled into the hefty offices wearing a fucking Detroit Red Wings jersey, which is like,
of course.
I don't know how to. I don't know. It's like the rivalry between these two teams, between the Detroit Red Wings and the Chicago Blackhawks, is a legendary thing that's really only kind of understood by people from Detroit and people from Chicago. But suffice it to say that the entire Hughes clan are diehard Blackhawks fans, and absolutely detest the Red Wings. And so when Rob rolled in like that, I think it was kind of like I think it was kind of just like a little bit like fucking with John, maybe a little bit. We loved him immediately for it. Like the balls on this guy, like coming in here wearing a Red Wings jersey.
Well, Rob,
You're in Chicago, man.
Rob, we had a rule because Rob. I met Rob when I was running Motor, and Motor did not have a dress code per se, but we did. If the kind of rule like if you roll up in a hockey jersey, that might be the only thing that would keep you from getting in. Like it wasn't, there wasn't any sort of like, dress to impress vibe. It was definitely like,
right.
90s raver / dudes with fucking, collars on or something. But hockey jerseys were basically a no-no. Except for Rob Theakston. We would joke Rob was the one guy who was allowed to wear a hockey jersey in Motor.
Yeah, I think he probably still wears a Red Wings jersey even though he lives in Kentucky.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So
I haven't seen him in a while because he doesn't leave Kentucky very often. I haven't been there. So
no. I saw him. He was at Plazleko's wedding. Was the last time I saw him, maybe just over 2 years ago.
Some serious industry insider shit right here, right there.
Yeah, exactly. That's dude. I don't care. That's why I do this. But for those who don't know, maybe we should give some sort of context. Okay. So you were or are was am Telefon Tel Aviv.
Correct.
Among several other names now.
Yeah. Started doing Telefon Tel Aviv in '99.
Okay.
And then with Charlie, and then we signed a hefty we signed a hefty in early 2000. Okay. We sent the demo in February of 2000, and John got it. We FedExed it to him, which was a pretty presumptuous, cheeky move. We FedExed it overnight, and because my thinking was like, okay, look, let's spend the $30. He's gonna open it. He's gonna say, who the fuck do these guys think they are? And he's going to open it and listen to it just because it's shipped in a FedEx.
Yeah. Oh, you would not believe like what people send, like how how people will like package stuff and send stuff. Like when I was the editor of Herb, it was like the ways people would, like, I remember one guy sent it was like a plastic container that had a bunch of CDs that like inspired the band. So it was like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Primus. It is give you an idea what kind of band this was.
I've never heard those before.
And the band, I don't remember their name, but it had something to do with the beach. So it was in this like plastic Tupperware thing full of a bunch of CDs, their CDs, and a bunch of fucking sand. Which is a terrible idea.
That's literally the worst idea.
And the thing wasn't sealed properly, so it leaked in the cardboard box. So when I open it up in my office,
CDs are scratched.
Sand is everywhere. Like my office is now covered in sand.
They'll never get written about.
No,
if they keep that up.
But so
Jesus Christ.
So you guys sent it from where? Were you guys?
We were in New Orleans still at the time.
It's okay. We'll keep going. But the battery just died or something. Can you check it?
That one, he took a...
It made a noise, and then it shut off.
Is battery dead? No, it's good.
The battery's up yesterday. Probably you didn't press record, or... There it is.
I thought I pressed record. Maybe not. I probably did not press record.
Oh, there we go.
Would be...
It's probably recording now.
So you sent it FedEx from where?
New Orleans.
Okay, so you guys were still in New Orleans at the time.
We were still there. And then, and John... I mean, I think in a matter of weeks, we were in Chicago.
Okay.
In his studio working on stuff, and we worked a little bit on our record in Chicago for a week or two, and we also worked on some stuff with John. Became friends almost immediately, and then also almost immediately decided that we needed to leave New Orleans, and that we would do so as soon as Fahrenheit Fair Enough was finished.
Okay.
So we finished it kind of we finished it sometime towards the end of 2000, and then pretty much within a month had left New Orleans.
All right.
Just packed up the car and just drove.
So what was it? I mean, did you didn't know John? You said it was.
No, we knew him at that point. By then, we knew him. By the end of 2000.
No, but I mean, like when you sent it. What was it like? You're two guys making music.
We
in
were
New
just
Orleans.
like, wow, Hefty's fucking awesome. It's kind of right in the sweet spot of super outsider electronic stuff, and this kind of, instrumental sort of post rock thing that we were really into. Ilium.
Okay.
And then Savath and Savalas came out like right around right before we were getting ready to send our demo, and we were like, oh, okay, yeah, it's got to be Hefty. We shouldn't even bother sending demos anywhere else.
Okay.
And so we didn't.
Yeah.
And we just sent that one FedEx to John. John called us back the next day and left a message. I remember it was one of the moments of my life where I experienced such ecstatic joy that I couldn't contain myself. And that's happened maybe 3 or 4 times in my life. And this was one of those moments when I got home from, I had a really shitty day. I'd been trying to get jobs at hotels downtown in New Orleans and having terrible interviews, and realized the futility of my life with a music degree and how useless it was. And I got home and there's a message, and I just hit the message, and it was John just going, yeah, I think, yeah, I got your demo. Just saying like 100 times, but talking about how he loved it and he wanted to put it out and he wanted us to come to Chicago. And I remember thinking like, okay, well then this is it. This is
Had you been to Chicago?
The highest point of my life. No, I had not. Been to Chicago.
Had you been out of New Orleans much?
I mean, I'd been out of New Orleans. I'd been to Atlanta a bunch, and I'd been to Miami some, and
you've still not been north. Okay, New York. So you had been north. Of the Mason-Dixon line that one time.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd been to New York a couple times, and a few times.
I'm trying to imply that you're like a shrimper, like off.
You could say. That Charlie and I were pretty parochial at that moment. We were still really wet behind the ears as far as the world, and
Did you grow up in
New Orleans?
New Orleans proper? Like in the city?
I grew up in New Orleans proper and spent a lot of time in Thibodaux growing up. So it was like we'd go on the weekends. We'd go to Thibodaux.
All right.
And but I grew up in New Orleans proper. Charlie grew up in New Orleans proper.
What's Thibodaux? Is it like kind of like a
Thibodaux is the bayou, partner. That's out there. That's about an hour down the bayou from New Orleans.
Okay.
There's a whole other accent there.
Gotcha.
There's a whole other way of life. It's
sounds like we go on the weekend.
It's the swamp.
Get out of the city. Okay.
It's fully. It's swamp boy shit out there. It's paradise, by the way. It's like the nicest people and the best food anywhere. And the grocery, there's nobody around for miles. The place we have out there, we have a tiny little house out there, and there's nobody around for miles. And the grocery out there is like the best grocery I've ever been to, because it's completely fresh seafood that comes right out of the water there every day. And you go in and you say, okay, what's good? And he's like, oh yeah, Rodney Aber came in with a lot of shrimp that looked real good this morning, partner. And that's what you get that day. Or maybe it's, you know, some flounder or something.
Yeah, any place where it's coming right out of the water.
It literally comes out of the water that morning, and it goes.
Whether it's you know, down in Louisiana, or if you're like in Santorini in Greece, like it doesn't matter. Like when you're watching it just come out and,
all
like,
over
boom,
the world
out of the grill.
Yeah. So I have these, like, you know, my girlfriend and I have these like these sort of fantasies of like building a little place out there and just kind of disappearing.
Yeah.
You know, we're close enough to New Orleans that we can still get culture when we need it. There's an airport within an hour that's not completely painful to get around from. So it is an international airport that does direct flights to Frankfurt. So that works for me if I'm trying to get to you know where. And but yeah, ultimately Charlie and I mean, at the time felt like, oh God, I mean, New Orleans was a dead zone. And so so we left and went to Chicago. In Chicago, the music scene, I don't have to tell anybody that at the late end of the 90s and early aughts, what was going on musically in Chicago was insane.
Yeah, between Hefty and Thrill Jockey.
It was insane. Yeah, I mean, and then other labels coming up, you know, Jeff Wilson with Consumers and I mean, yeah, they were just.
Now I've gotten into trouble on this podcast talking a little shit about that scene. Actually,
feel free to. I mean, I will talk hella shit
hella
in Chicago
shit.
now. I mean, I will wreck Chicago because there was so much wrong with it, but
so much right, and a lot of great music coming out of that.
Yeah, I think like, you know, somebody who to me has made a good defense of Chicago is Carl Meyer, because he'll make the right defenses of Chicago, but he doesn't. But I think Carl probably doesn't get pissed off by the things that pissed me off about Chicago. Or it was like, I talked about like again. And here's the same five guys again complaining about the latest record by Jim O'Rourke again. And it's like
that's it,
and they're eye rolling John Herndon because he's behind the bar at the fucking Rainbow, and it's like, what, you think Tortoise are fucking millionaires, bro? Like, you think these guys are just rolling around in fucking cash? Like, no, dude, they have day jobs. They work.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes think, like, if it wasn't for Tortoise, I might not have gotten into electronic music.
I think that's probably true for a lot of people.
They were such, because I had kind of tried to do it earlier, like in high school, and just nothing. It didn't click. It just wasn't my thing, and so I was still in that, you know, like post punk into post rock, you know, Fugazi into whatever, you know, Slint into Tortoise. And I remember reading, it was an interview with not John Herndon, John McIntyre, in Wired or Wire?
Wire.
Yeah, the British mag.
Yeah.
And he literally he was talking about something called drum and bass. This would have been like this had to be 94.
Oh,
maybe
before
95.
Millions Now Living, probably.
I feel Millions Now Living was out, so
that must have been about...
okay. I'm trying to remember. I'm picturing the room I was in college. Okay, no, I'm sorry. This would have been like 95.
Yeah.
And I remember because I had the CD. And I remember reading this article, and he talked about something called drum and bass that I didn't, you know, I had no idea what that was. He mentioned Macro Dub Infection, which is this, like, you know, compilation.
That's awesome.
And I remember calling a buddy of mine who was in some emo band in Detroit, and I was up in East Lansing, and I was like, have you read this article? Because he's like, oh yeah, like, I'm like, do you have any idea what this drum and bass means? I mean, this is like pre-internet, like there was no, you couldn't. Yeah. And I literally remember him just thinking, like, well, I would imagine there's a lot of rhythm.
And a lot of bass.
And then having to go to the record store with the magazine and being like, so, can you guys get this Macro Dub Infection compilation?
I mean, yeah, McIntyre's been ahead of the curve on a lot of shit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Drum and bass wasn't even really a thing in America at that point. I mean, actually, I got into it around 95 because, there was this kid, Omar Nazal, who was from Cologne, and he came to school, Loyola University in New Orleans, where I went to, and I met him. I saw him day one of school. This b-boy rolled in, and he wasn't from New Orleans, and so we instantly started talking and became homies. And he broke me off on all kinds of like of drum and bass stuff, because he had all these like these like kind of raga and jump up mixtapes
Mhm.
that were just not available in the United States. It was all UK stuff, and he had all of it.
Yeah.
And then right around that time, I met this other guy in New Orleans, Steve Levy. And Steve Levy was he was a couple years older than me, and was already an extremely accomplished drum and bass DJ, already outstanding. And he basically broke me off on all that stuff, on that whole side of music, that whole side of electronic music of like Photek, Source Direct, Dillinger, Goldie, all of it.
Yeah, the more like technical.
Yeah, the kind of like the metalheads.
Yeah.
And then all of the sort of everything branching out from this stuff. And of course, as somebody who was already in love with Autechre and Aphex Twin, this shit spoke volumes to me. And
Were there places to go hear it? Like,
only Steve Levy would play it.
Okay.
There's one guy that played it.
And was it like a club, or was it like in the mix of the
Yeah,
raves?
it was in the mix of the raves. There would be they started doing drum and bass rooms as early as 94, 95 in New Orleans.
Oh, wow, okay.
So the main rave thing was like hella trance shit going on,
Yeah.
but there was always a drum and bass room. And it was always Steve Levy and another guy named Drew.
Yeah, I'm gonna get beat. I know somebody's gonna hit me up saying I'm wrong, but I don't remember anything in Detroit pre like 97, 98.
Well, y'all had all that techno. Man.
Yeah, we had all
See,
the
we
techno
didn't
to
like
get
techno.
through,
New
yeah.
Orleans kids didn't know what the fuck techno was until there were like 3 or 4 of us that played techno, but we were the only ones. I mean, Dave Manick played techno, Andre Gett played techno, me, Ron Snyder, we played techno, but we were all like a little crew, and nobody else knew or cared about techno.
So how did you find this stuff down there?
Getting on like BBS boards online and stuff, you know. The early version of the IDM list and stuff like that. You could go online and like figure out what Planet E had, and sometimes you'd order from Planet E, and other times we'd order from this guy PJ that was I want to say he was in Florida somewhere. I don't remember.
Yeah, because I mean there were some scenes going on. Like I think probably Tampa would have been close to you reasonably.
Yeah, there was also I can't think of this guy's name right now, but he was a guy who used to make techno in the mid-90s, and he was a friend of sort of my DJ mentor. This guy Andre was my DJ mentor. He taught me everything about DJing. And his buddy lived in Tulsa and had a record shop in Tulsa that carried all the techno, everything. We were ordering Advent records in 1996 from a record shop in Tulsa.
How far is Tulsa from New Orleans?
Not anywhere even remotely geographically related to New Orleans.
Okay.
It's like
Okay,
literally,
that's what I
it's
thought,
like
right?
3 days driving.
Oh, okay,
It's like
okay,
so
okay.
fucking
I'm like,
far.
all right.
It's preposterous. You would never make that drive. You might as well drive to Alaska.
Okay.
but somehow Andre was friends with this guy, and God damn it, what was this guy's name? I don't remember. I wish I could remember the name of him or his record shop. But anyway, Andre would buy all his records from this guy, or from the shop in Detroit, and and sometimes Sonic Groove.
Up in New York.
Because we ran a little record, me and Andre ran a little and Ron ran a little record label from like 95 to 97. We put 2 records out. Little small 300 batch stuff, electro stuff. And Sonic Groove, we had at least a decent working relationship with them because they would buy they bought all our stock.
Right.
We thought we would try to sell, call all these different distros and sell 10 here, 5 here, 20 there, and Heather Hart took them all.
Just said give.
She said, "Yes, send all 3 of them, 300 of them up here."
Did she talk like that?
She had a crazy accent. Back in the day. I mean, now maybe she doesn't.
I try and I don't.
She had a real New York accent.
I don't. I mean, it makes if she's talking to Adam and Frankie all day, you would imagine she would have to have the same.
Like I don't know those guys, but don't they have like crazy?
Yeah, they do.
Crazy New York accents.
Yeah. Like
they were super cool to us. Really, really, really cool. I want to say Dietrich Schainemann was involved in it at the time and had a hand in kind of like, no, this is cool shit. Like, buy those kids records.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a fun time.
So let's go back even farther. I mean, how did you discover all this? Like what was? I mean, did you start off as a musician? You went to music
man.
school,
I mean, I was interested in electronic music when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
Because that Herbie Hancock
Break
video,
dancing,
rock, the whole b-boyism thing. And see, to me, it wasn't just about b-boyism as much as it was about b-boyism was tied to futurism. And I was always obsessed with I guess my dad started getting me obsessed with like sci-fi and the future and Star Wars and all that shit when I was really young.
Okay.
Like 5.
Right.
And then my obsession with sci-fi and kind of futurism is kind of what brought me to electronic music, because the electronic music in the 80s, even also when I was a little boy, was still about boundary pushing.
Mm-hmm.
It was still about expanding the palette. Like, how far can we take things? What can we get away with? What's a new concept on something that'll make somebody dance? Or how can we take what disco and all this other stuff did and kind of go elsewhere with it? How can we take rap and fuse all this stuff together? And so there was all this kind of, Jesus, I guess now that I think back about it, and I feel really stupid for realizing now, I guess really all of it was Afrofuturism, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
In the 80s, the stuff that I really liked
Yeah.
was all made by black men from Detroit and Chicago.
Okay.
Pretty much all of it.
So, and Detroit in particular had the future. And then maybe, does it
My
even go back
God.
before that? Like Africa Bambaataa, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, because I remember,
Weird as that guy.
I remember seeing a video for Planet Rock and going, what the fuck is this?
Mhm.
And then Herbie Hancock's video, I was like, there's robots walking around. What is this?
Yeah.
This is amazing. There's that guy scratching DXT, is that his name? I can't remember.
That's a good one.
The DJ's
We should call
name.
Rob Theakston and ask him.
Theakston will know. He'll know his real name too.
Yeah.
So then I got this breakdancing compilation or whatever, and it had Clear by Cybertron on it and a Kraftwerk song on it, and it was sick. I was in love. I knew I had to do this somehow. And then then I went through like my metal and hip hop phase when I was like 10. But by the time I was 13, I was already saving up to buy synthesizers.
Okay.
It was like a cannonball falling to the earth, man.
All right, wow.
There was nothing stopping it.
And that's interesting because the breakdancing thing, like the electro breakdancing thing, was super mainstream for all of 2 years.
Yeah, like
Right,
probably
like
85 to 87, it was like, oh my fucking God.
And it was, and that was that
everywhere.
there were movies, and there was, breakdancing just on like Saturday night sitcoms or Saturday morning cartoons. Like it was everywhere for like 2 years.
Alfonso Ribeiro, Slipmat Kit,
Mhm.
you know.
And then like as these things do, it would it vanished because nothing that gets that ridiculously mainstream that quickly sticks around.
Yeah, it's impossible.
And so by the time you're 13, I would imagine if you're going back to it now, it's this stuff that's more underground or more, certainly not on
yeah, by
pop radio.
13 years old, 14 years old, was already dark and upset.
Okay,
You could
okay.
say, I was already obsessed with Skinny Puppy and this kind of stuff. It went via industrial music. And then by 93, 94, it had come full circle back to just pure electronic music, because there was an electronic music buyer at the Tower Records in New Orleans, an older guy, couldn't tell you his name, and he knew all of it.
Mhm.
And that's right around that time they started doing a listening station at Tower Records in New Orleans. 1994, I remember, was the first time I think I saw it. I think it was 94, maybe 95.
Mhm.
But I remember seeing on there, it was when I Care Because You Do had come out. And I didn't know anything about Aphex Twin.
Right.
And there was one listening station that said ambient. I was like, that's fucking cool. What's this? What's this
What's that
shit?
sound?
And then
And you're
there's
probably looking at the album
then I
art
see
and
the
you're like,
album art,
yeah.
and I was like, what is this fucking painting of this guy making a stupid face? And like, what's this other one that's like got these like pink sand mountains with a blue sky? What's this? I don't know what the fuck this. What is it? Oh my God, what is this? This is amazing.
Yeah.
I'd never heard anything like Autech or Aphex Twin at that point. I think another thing that was on there was I think there was a B12 record on there. It was Warp stuff. There was like an AI comp. And then so that all that stuff blew my mind. And then right around the same time, my cousin got me a job working at a record store, and there was an electronic section there, and I remember seeing, this was a formative moment for me also. I remember seeing Music by Plastic Man in the bin. And I remember looking at the logo and thinking, well, that's a fucking weird thing. What is this about?
Yeah.
And we took it out. We just bought it and just listened to it one night after work. We were like, what is that? Nobody's going to buy this. Let's just buy it. It's $12. We bought it and put it on, and both of us were like, this is fucking awesome. Like, this is crazy. What is this music? Like, it sounds like it's rooted in techno, but it's not rooted in techno. It's something.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, it's actually very rooted in
it's
techno,
completely
but
rooted
yeah,
in techno. But it sounds like bounce rap. The second track, like, what is this? Where's this guy getting these fucking ideas from?
Oh, see, that's interesting because I wonder. I mean, I would suspect Rich had never heard bounce rap. I would suspect
course
that
he'd never
Rich
heard
to
it.
this day has probably never heard bounce rap.
I doubt
But-
it. I doubt it. Yeah, there's no way. And in 1994, there's definitely no way. And but the second track on there is the beat of it is reminiscent of what was going on in New Orleans at the time. So to us, it was really shocking. It seemed like a coincidence or just a brilliant sleight of hand. So either way, yeah, that was a big moment. And then my cousin Jonathan, he's now in corporate at Harris. He's the general manager of the Harris property in Mississippi. So he went off in a totally different direction, not a musician. But then we also started flipping through that bin more.
Mm-hmm.
He and I did. And the next thing that we pulled out was a Trezor comp that was it had Jeff Mills and
full
yeah,
frontal
and
techno.
full of, the first track on there was the Domina remix of it was a Maurizio remix of Domina.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, oh, this okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Right around then is when I met Andre and Ron. I started learning how to DJ, started learning how to play techno. And Andre's like, "Oh, you like Trezor? Okay, here's all this.
Here's
shit.
all the records.
Here's everything
here's
Lawrence
DJX
von
Upbeat,
Oswald.
Here's
Exactly.
Basic Channel. Here's It happens very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, really, like, I assume it sounds like, within, like, it's like, same. Everyone kind of has it like 2 years.
Yeah,
of
it
just,
was like a 2-year from like
rapid
94 to
acceleration.
96 where like my brain just got wrecked by music.
Yeah,
in
mine
the
was like
best
95
way.
to 97, same. Just, and then by then you're like, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm. And then you know how to search for it and how to find it and who to ask for recommendations and who to make recommendations to for what kind of music and I mean now we have the internet, so all of that, the challenge of it is entirely
relevant.
gone. You literally.
Sometimes I wonder if it would be more challenging because there's so much to go
there's a
through.
lot more
and there's,
music
and
being
there's
made.
not necessarily the guidance.
I'm actually usually pretty surprised by what happens if I'm listening to Biosphere on Spotify and I let the record run out and I let Spotify make recommendations to me.
What does it come up with?
It comes up with pretty accurate, terrific shit.
Do you use Spotify a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been using it since when I moved to Berlin. It was like 2011.
I've resisted it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, and it's like that algorithm, like, and I don't know if it's judging off of your taste or if it's also if it's like, if you like Biosphere, you also like.
I think it weights it based on what you listen to, but it weights it based on what other people who listen to that listen to, and then it kind of balances those things.
But it knows the algorithm's pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
So that said, I wonder, and I'm not the only one to wonder this, like, but if you lose the serendipity, if the computer knows what you want, it only gives you what you know that you want.
Yeah, and there's
like you
no
might not be
accounting
able to
for
find a Plastic Man, if you didn't know what to.
Yeah, if it was only feeding me Autechre at the time,
Mm-hmm.
if Spotify existed in 94 and I put in I Care Because You Do, it probably would have tried to give me a lot more like kind of crusty, noisier stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like it might have even gone in the direction as far as Merzbow
Yeah.
instead of going back full AI towards Black Dog and Dimension Intrusion and whatever else was going on at the time. So you're right about that. And then there's no accounting for the fact that if you it never would have put the Pixies on after I Care Because You Do, and I adored the Pixies, and it definitely wouldn't have put Einstürzen und Neubauten on after putting on Amber by Autechre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there's no accounting for like humans' desire to have the human entropy of having wide tastes.
Yeah. Well, and there's something to, just because music sounds so different, there's still like, it makes sense that someone who likes Autechre likes the Pixies, and maybe it's just maybe it's just that if you're the type of person who goes looking for music of a certain sort, and that certain sort it's not genre specific, because it's like, then I could probably guess you probably like old Hank Williams.
Yeah.
Like, like there's a certain
you're right.
There's a certain level of, I'm trying not to use the H word because it's before the H word, but yeah, just a certain, like, if you're into cool music, you're into cool music, and you're into something that's not the pop sheen.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you're right about that. Like you can generally guess that somebody like me is also probably into My Bloody Valentine,
Mhm.
probably into
Yeah.
Slow Dive.
But
probably,
and every now and again you meet someone who's not, and then it's like weird because it's like
yeah. I meet people I met somebody recently that was like, "Oh, I hate Slow Dive." And it was really weird to me. I just didn't really understand. It's like saying you hate the Cocteau Twins.
Yeah.
Like I've only met one person that told me they didn't like the Cocteau Twins, and I'm not friends with this person.
But do they like other stuff that's like the Cocteau Twins? Because that's the difference. There's you tell me I've never heard of Slow Dive. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I know you're just not within.
Yeah, you
that.
Just didn't dig in on that. That's
but
fine.
If you tell
I came to them
you
super late.
If you tell me you hate Slow Dive, that's weird because you know, like, how do you know something and then hate it?
Yeah, I don't
like
know.
It's so hard to find by the time you get to it. I think this person's being contrarian.
That's kind of what I thought too.
So I love the new Slow Dive album.
I haven't listened to it yet.
It is fantastic.
You're not the first person that's told me that. Also,
it's like that album, maybe like the Portishead album. There's been a few that are just like how like bands that you can't possibly be this good, this far.
Oh, you mean
out.
Portishead putting out third?
Yeah,
however many years,
14 years after,
and they put out a fucking masterpiece.
Exactly. And Slow Dive did a lot of the same thing. Like
I don't doubt it.
It's a fantastic record. You know, there's a lot of, you know, as opposed to like the My Bloody Valentine record, which was like, okay, it had some moments, but you know, you certainly don't want to hear anything the Pixies are doing now.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
But although the new Breeder single is
there's going to
good.
be a new My Bloody Valentine record. I wonder if it's just going to be more of kind of what the last one was. I mean, remember how big a deal that was in the press when that record came? What was it, 2012 when it came out or something?
I want maybe a little before, but
it might have been 2011. It was like the talk of like the cool music scene. Everybody,
of course, because everyone had been waiting for it forever.
Yeah.
And then it came out, and it was like, frankly, this show is just not about DJs anymore.
It's not about, we can talk about
fuck
techno.
this is great. But that My Bloody Valentine record, if it had been sequenced differently, I think would have helped a lot, because side one was just rehashes. Side one was like, this is what you expect from My Bloody Valentine. Side two, there was one or two songs, I can't remember, there was one track in particular that was like, it actually progressed. I was like, this sounds like something different, moving on from the ideas that he had however many years ago. And I feel like if they had sequenced it a little differently, the whole thing might have. But that's some nerdy fucking internet music guy shit that I'm spouting right now. So I should see if this is like the ILM list. But this is fun. This actually happened with Carl Meyer as well.
Yeah.
We ended up talking about fucking like touch and go bands for 40 minutes.
Carl knows more about music than pretty much anybody, so he's fun to talk about music with.
All right, so you're in, you're playing music at this point as well. Yes, were you playing? Because you can play like. I remember going to NAMM with you and Charlie one year.
Oh, that was fun. 2003. That was really fun.
I just assumed we would go into the electronic area, and you guys were like, no, like, let's go. We want to go see, like, we were like in like the marching band section, and you picked up. We went up to like it was like a $25,000 marimba. Is that
yeah,
the
it was
right
a
word?
marimba.
And you just and you picked it up, and you were just, and you had like the dreads down your ass.
Yeah, God. Problematic dreadlocks. Yeah.
Some guy comes over and like assumes like, can I help you? And you just you could play that thing.
I kind of can play a little bit of a like a lot of things. Okay. I don't really play any of them particularly well. I don't think.
I think within the context of.
It works for Telefon Tel Aviv, or at least it had. I mean, I haven't played anything in Telefon Tel Aviv in a while. It's getting more and more electronic as I get older. The new stuff is very electronic. But yeah, I had some, I had musical training kind of throughout my life. I started piano when I was a little kid. Wasn't that good at it. Started saxophone after that, studied saxophone for 5 years. Never really got that good at that either. By the time I was 10 or 11, I wanted to play guitar. Played guitar my whole life. Kind of stopped after college. And now most of my guitar skills gone. I don't really have
It's not like riding a bike, it turns out.
No,
Because I
it's
could play
not.
a little bit of guitar in college, and now I pick up a guitar, and I'm like, I mean, part of it's just losing the calluses,
It goes away.
but even like the muscle memory, like it does kind of fade out.
In high school, I was kind of like a shredder metal dude.
Oh, wow, okay.
At guitar, I could play all of Marty Friedman's solos in Hangar 18.
All right.
I couldn't even play 5 notes of them now. I mean, I don't have the speed or the dexterity. But yeah, and then I studied classical guitar in high school, and I got pretty good at that, and then did that into college. I wanted to study composition and theory,
Okay.
but I had to have an instrument, so guitar was my instrument. But I don't really play that much anymore. I can play enough keyboard to get around on it. I can play enough bass guitar to get around, enough guitar to get around.
What did you imagine you would do with this like music theory degree, or are you doing it? Is this
I thought I would score movies.
okay?
Still waiting for that phone call.
You would every other electronic
Yeah.
person ever.
I
But-
trained for it. I
Yeah.
trained in conducting and orchestrating and all that shit.
Yeah.
Like I can sit down with the pencil and paper and do it all
Okay,
on pencil and
okay.
paper. I can get in front of an orchestra and do it. And I mean, I did with Telefon Tel Aviv. We did that several times.
With a
Yeah. On Map of What Is Effortless,
okay.
there's two or three songs that have an orchestra playing
Mm-hmm.
on them. And I would love to do that, but it kind of went. Telefon Tel Aviv occupied and still does and has occupied this really strange space. That's not. We're too techno for rock places, and we're too rock for techno places, and we're too dreary for upbeat places, but too upbeat for ambient places, and it's almost cinematic, but not cinematic enough. And so we're just kind of in this fucking no man's land.
Mhm.
And then it's, some of the stuff earlier on was getting relegated to sort of, getting put in the pile with like kind of sushi restaurant house music, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or like lounge music DVD menu on repeat kind of vibe. And that really, really bummed us out because we didn't see it that way at all. People were like, oh, it's down tempo. Like, no, it's fucking not. It's 160 beats per minute. There's shit flying around everywhere. There's nothing slow about it. Like,
But you cut 160 in half. It's 80.
but you cut it in half. People were cutting it in half and just kind of nodding their head to it. And we were like, God damn it. So there was a little bit of like a kind of angry knee-jerk reaction we had to that by like just not making music for a while.
When was this? This was like
It was especially after Map of What Is Effortless. We were mystified by that, and Damon Aaron was mystified by it, and Lindsay Anderson was mystified by it. We're all confused. Like, what the fuck? It's not what this music is. Anyway, we thought we were making this like really dark, kind of sinister R&B record. It ended up being not quite that, but that's what we were trying to do. And so after that, we were just like, fuck it. Okay, we're not going to do anything for a while. Like, we just need to let this blow over.
right. Because you think so the first record, because that was the third record.
Map was the second.
Second.
One.
Okay, so
Third release, second record.
we're jumping around a little, but that's perfectly
Yeah.
okay. You start, so you get out of school, you get to Chicago, you put out the first record.
Mhm.
I don't remember that first record coming out. I think I might have even written a review of it for somewhere.
I think you did.
So like the local Detroit magazine or whatever, because I wasn't writing nationally at that point. But I remember seeing you guys at the Blind Pig in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, it was fun. Our first Blind Pig show was really fun for us, man.
Yeah. I remember nothing about it except I remember and it was that was a different thing because at that point it was mostly either bands or DJs that were occupying at that point my headspace was mostly occupied by DJs. But yeah, I remember one of you was playing guitar and it was a laptop, and this was early in but there was kind of a movement that happened around then because that was 2001. You said so by 02, 03, raves are dead or dying very quickly.
Yeah, they kind of weren't really raves anymore.
Right. And there was this void, but there was still an interest in electronic music, and Hefty and Ghostly and a lot of these kind of labels came to occupy this type of music that could go into traditional concert venues, like go
Exactly.
into like Midwest Product could play at the Empty Bottle, or
Yeah.
Matthew Deere could do a live set at St. Andrews Hall, or I'm just trying to
Yeah, I mean, I think within a couple years we were playing at the Magic Stick.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
was
the
like
Magic, which was just
a
a
total rock venue.
Yeah, it was a
for
place
us,
where
at
like the
least.
White Stripes would play one night, and then
Yeah.
the next night it would be something like Telefon Tel Aviv. And I've talked to, I actually remember years ago talking to Tom Windish about that, because I think he was, it seemed to me very instrumental in carving out that space, as a booking agent. And I don't know if you guys ever worked with Tom.
No, we did. I did briefly recently.
Okay.
But yeah, Tom, you got to give Tom Windish a lot of credit for kind of realizing where the tide was going.
Yeah, exactly.
I
He's
give,
the one who
give
realized,
him
like,
credit for looking at his roster while he was at Billions and going, "Holy shit!" And then seeing that all of those artists, being able to have the foresight to see that all of those artists could and would grow, and,
Yeah.
as far as a fan base, and that
And
that this could work in clubs
and figure out, I'm going to sell this to rock clubs and to like museum openings and just alternate things away from
now
the traditional
he's an empire. So
of
congratulations
of sorts.
Good work.
Yeah,
Good work.
Got the office downtown. They're like opening a Momofuku next door.
Yeah, they've got the place in Echo Park, and I don't even know how many. I don't know how many agents they've got now. Tons of them.
Yeah, well, they merged too. It's not just
With
not with
Paradigm,
Paradigm,
yeah.
so it's a whole bigger operation.
Yeah, it's crazy now.
But it seemed like you guys were definitely a part of that. Like
We were-
in terms of the moving,
Yeah, we were kind of. I mean, look, I don't want to like get out here and like pat myself on the back or like take a bunch of credit for it. But as far as like dorks making dorky music and playing with laptops and merging that with the music side of it, like, yeah, we were out there in the forest with the fucking machete, like cutting a path.
Yeah.
We were like getting shit thrown at us, tomatoes thrown at us in fucking Amsterdam, and like beer bottles getting thrown. Like, we ate shit for a long time before it was like even remotely okay to have a laptop on stage. And we started doing it in the 90s. So kids, lawn, vacate.
So when could you could start making music? When were you making music with a laptop? I mean, I don't remember.
I started making music using a laptop to run as the hub of the studio in 1995.
I didn't even know they had laptops in 1995. Where did you get a laptop in
Macintosh
1995?
520 running Studio Vision.
Okay.
And you could run, you could send MIDI out of that. There's a serial port. And you could get an opcode MIDI interface that would translate like your printer port, your serial port into, you could send MIDI out of this to your hardware. And so I had all the old Roland boxes and a KMS-30 converting, a clock signal to a DIN sync signal for those boxes, and then a Kurzweil sampler and an Akai sampler and a Juno 106, and you just had to get it all to play nice together. Send MIDI on the laptop, MIDI tracks, and it fires out into the stuff that can play MIDI, and then it sends a pulse to the KMS-30, converting it for the old Roland stuff.
Because that doesn't take MIDI. That's just like a.
The 808, 909, the 909 I think could send MIDI.
Okay.
I don't have a 909 anymore, and I don't give a flying fuck about touching one, and haven't touched one in 15 years. So,
What the 909 ever do to you, man?
I love the 909. It's great, but it's like, I don't care.
You've used it,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still have samples of my old machine. I sampled it. I sold it. It really didn't serve any purpose except for vanity. I paid $50 for it in a pawn shop in '96.
Okay.
Like, I was lucky. But anyway, if I remember correctly, I think the 909, maybe it only receives MIDI or it only sends MIDI, or I don't remember. But basically, the DIN sync machine, the KMS-30, gets all that stuff to talk nice.
Gotcha.
And then you can trigger the one-on-one with off of the 808.
Okay.
The clav or something like that. I don't I don't plug things into things anymore. I don't like I really don't give a shit about that. Like, I have some hardware and I like those things, but like the whole like obsession with hardware to me is just laughably like limiting and kind of silly. And it's sort of like now it's like people that are buying this shit now, it's like they're literally just showing off their DJ fees. It's like, oh, cool, yeah. Must be nice to fly business class. But
with your
I paid
hardware,
$3,000 for an 808.
One for you and one for your 808.
Yeah, like, and oh, cool, you can spend all that money on all right, dude, good work.
So
I can't. I mean,
So what are you working on now?
I'm always working on Second Woman stuff now.
Okay. That's you and
That's me and Turk from Belong. We have just finished another EP, and or no, it's not quite done yet. We just scratched a song. The label that's going to put it out had a better idea about where we should go with it. We actually took direction from a label. This is pretty amazing, because we didn't want to believe that this guy was right, but he was right. So that'll be finished this week. I'm working on new Telephone stuff.
Okay.
It's been 2 years since I started working on this record, and I'm still going.
Yeah, I remember talking to you when you were first like, I think I'm ready to.
And so here's that. So I'm still working on that, and then doing a lot of mastering work these days, which is a lot of fun. I love doing this.
That's
kind
right.
of stuff.
You. I forgot about this whole angle.
And I'm a studio monkey.
Working
so.
with like Limp Bizkit and stuff like you.
Oh, that's been.
I mean, I know it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
but
that was about 12 years ago. I
but
engineered.
You worked. Yeah, I'll let you tell it.
Yeah, I engineered a record, Wes Borland's project called
Right.
Blacklight Burns. I didn't do all the engineering on it. I just did a lot of the engineering on it. The late, wonderful Critter engineered a bunch of it as well. Yeah.
How did that happen? I mean, how
happened
does
through
that
Danny
call?
Lohner?
How does that call come in?
That happened through Danny Lohner. Danny, I met concurrently with us sending the demo to Hefty. Danny Lohner and Trent Reznor got a hold of the same demo through a friend of ours.
Okay.
And we didn't know that this is a guy named Alan who I just gave him everything that we made. I didn't know that Alan was going to give it to anybody. He gave it to Danny Lohner, who was the bass player in Nine Inch Nails at the time. And Danny heard it and loved it, and then he gave it to Trent, and Trent heard it and was like, "Oh, is this the kid that? Oh, it's the same kid!" Like, because I'd met Trent some years before, and Trent was like, "Holy shit, we'll get him in here. Let's do stuff." And so I met Danny at that time, and then for probably the next 6 or 7 years, my main hustle was engineering for Danny.
Okay.
So
this is in Chicago, or this was
in L.A.
This is what you were in L.A. Okay.
I would come to L.A. to work with Danny for months at a time. I lived in Chicago.
You were living in Chicago still,
right?
So Telephone was still a thing, but you would come out here to make money before going on tour to get tomatoes thrown at you as Telephone.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, alles klar. All right, please continue.
So Danny would fly me out for a summer or whatever, and I'd engineer everything that he worked on. If he had like a big project or like those Underworld movies, he was in charge of like organizing all the music for that shit, and so I would engineer it and mix a lot of these songs and that's how he and Wes Borland are buddies, and Wes wanted Danny to produce his record, and so Danny was like, "Okay, cool. Well, then can I have my engineer do it?" Which is me. And so I did mostly like all the Pro Tools stuff.
Okay.
For that. I haven't done like Hollywood music work in a long time though. I'm pretty much Mr. Underground bro now. Like I do a lot of stuff for Deus, for Aesthetic House. I started doing stuff for Spectrum Spools and Editions Mago. Cranky, on and off doing stuff for Cranky.
But it's all just in like the mastering
engineering side. Well, Deus I do production side too. Okay. Like we've kind of we like to develop bands or whatever. Like I mean, Them or Us Too is a perfect example of like a band that Gibby and I went to see them play at a house show down at the Handbag Factory downtown. And Gibby had the suspicion that this band was going to be amazing. He's like, "Hey, dude, come to the show with me. This band's great. I want to see them." We watched them, and I said, "Dude, please sign this band, and please let me produce it. Like, let me help them make this record." And so we did.
Okay. So I don't think I realized you were that closely involved with Deus.
Yeah, I mean, Gibby's like my brother.
Okay. I don't know. I've met Gibby a lot over the years. I love Gibby. He's like the nicest guy.
He's another Midwest guy, though.
He's another like. I mean, he's
a St. Louis dude.
He's more into music than anybody. Like
he's
like I feel like
he's literally
I feel like
he's
the guy that's never stood at a show with his arms crossed.
No, like, he's in the front, like with the
like no, but like it's
40
like,
years old,
exactly.
In the front
Like,
with the fist
I wish
up,
I could have that sort of. enthusiasm.
Yeah, he adores music. And he and Ryan have curated it really well. Deus is doing great, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger without getting corny or anything. So I do as much work for them as I can, and I like that. A big one for me is I got to mix the Drew McDowell record,
Okay.
which is like a very big deal for me. Because Drew McDowell was a very big deal for me.
Gotcha.
His musical history is a very big deal for me.
I know the name. I don't know a whole lot about it. So maybe
Coil.
Okay, right.
You know, think Time Machines is his baby, which also Deus just reissued, which is amazing. It's a beautiful edition. I highly recommend it. So that was a big honor for me. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff. That's sort of my side hustle.
Okay.
And then all the while I'll work with I'll work with Greg and Steve on Black Queen stuff, or a lot with Turk on Second Woman, because that stuff's pretty effortless and fun to make. Telephone is kind of painful.
Right. Well, for
it's just painful to make.
yeah.
Yeah, for many reasons.
I mean, look, we don't need to get into all that, but I do wonder. I noticed that Telephone was always a duo, and now you're trying to do it as one person. Yet you're also doing something else with a new, as a duo. And do you feel like do you feel like something's one way is more comfortable than the other? Do you feel like?
Oh no, I'm way better in a duo.
Yeah. Okay.
I hate working alone, and but the whole telephone thing, maybe it's an ego thing or whatever, that I have to prove to everybody that I can do it on my own. But I'm not gonna end up doing it all on my own. There will be collaborators on the telephone record, especially at this point where I'm thinking like, God, it would be great to get this person to do this on this thing. It would be so much better because I can't really do that. I'm good at like a certain little set of things, and I'm gonna try to get all of that to be the best work of my life or whatever. But there's going to be stuff that other people are going to have to step in on,
is it because it feels unfinished? Is it
Yeah.
or is it literally unfinished? Because
it is literally very much unfinished.
were you working
done.
with some stuff that dated back really far, or
I
will you
was.
start with like a clean slate? Because I thought you at one point maybe you told me, or I read somewhere that you were.
I mean, Charlie and I had 5 or 6 demos.
Okay.
He had a pile of them. I don't have them. I can't get them. So I had to pretty much abandon that. And anyway, my ideas that were going to be on the next Telephone record I ended up turning those into the Sons of Magdalene record.
Okay.
And then I wrote more songs in that vein to kind of flush that out and make that record a thing. Telephone is going back into super weirdo world now. It's all the stuff that I've been doing with Second Woman with Turk has kind of sort of seeped into my brain in a way where I don't really think about music in a linear way anymore, and writing songs is really painful and difficult for me because I'm not very good at it, and it's a huge challenge. And so I'm trying to find a way to sort of make the Telephone fans happy, but not make myself miserable rehashing anything, or kind of just doing more Immolate or more Fahrenheit or more Map or whatever.
And those are they're reasonably different records when you really listen to them. So it's almost
very
like
different.
Yeah, to just do one of those 3 or do an album that's like a bit of everything is.
Yeah, so the new direction has elements of all 3. I'm really trying to kind of marry the whole back catalog into like enough of a starting point to kind of go off into wherever the fuck it's going to go next. Because the 4th record is going to be different than the other 3.
Sure.
So.
And you're approaching. I mean, when was the last record?
It came out in January of 2009.
Okay, so you're not quite at Portishead distance,
close.
But you could be
close. I mean, they were
not to add more pressure.
They were 11 years.
They were okay.
So it would have to come out in 2020, but I guarantee you my record will be out well before that. This isn't Chinese democracy. I'm not talking shit. This is my daily struggle. I'm working on this constantly. I finish songs and then I hate them and delete them from the hard drive, because after a certain point I'll listen to something and realize that I don't like a single thing about it.
Okay. How long does that usually take to come to that realization, or is there a place where you come to that realization?
It happens pretty quickly usually.
Yeah, in the studio, in the car.
I start getting that feeling sort of as I'm finishing it.
Okay.
I start getting this sort of shitty feeling in my stomach. It's just like a shit feeling. And then,
is that the moment where you need to? It helps if you have somebody in the room that talk you down. And
I mean, it would have been great to have somebody in the room, 60% earlier in the completion ratio to go, dude, no, bro.
Okay.
Like this shit. Like I need somebody to come in and Lars dad. I think you should delete that. Like I need a Lars dad before I take it too far.
Before the mix down.
Yeah,
okay.
well before the mix down part of it. Anyway,
so, but
it's moving. I got a folder full of stuff, tons of it.
mm-hmm.
I've written tons of music. I hate all of it. I don't know. It's all terrible. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe you just need to start DJing techno again.
I've
never seen you DJ.
I'm going to be DJing techno, I think, in December. I have a bunch of DJ gigs with ComTrues coming up. But I got to talk to him and see what he's going to be playing, because if he's going to play this kind of like, upper teens Italo-y stuff, then I don't want to go in there like wrecking him with Ostgut-tone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When's the last time you did that? Because I've never seen you do it, and I'm trying to remember if I've seen you on a bill.
The last time I played techno.
And how do you bill it? As you play, you just go out.
Telefon Tel Aviv.
Oh, okay.
The last time I played techno would have been in February. It was a while. I haven't DJ'd a lot this year. I did a couple radio shows. I don't remember where else I've been. There were a few DJ gigs I don't remember. Last time I played like jacking ass techno though was February at a Perpetual Dawn party.
Okay.
For Miguel.
Right.
Which was super fun party.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about that.
Really fun party.
I don't do late night parties so much these days. So
I don't either. And I was sick that night, and it got moved, and it got canceled, and then it got moved a week later, and I was sick as a fucking dog, but it was fun. It was worth doing.
Well, this is something I've started doing. For each episode, I ask. I mean, typically I have DJs on. You've obviously, because there's so much out there, and if someone doesn't know what telephone is about, or doesn't like, is there a mix or a record, or what should be the starting point? Be your own Spotify.
My own Spotify. That's interesting. There are a couple mixes that I think are worth checking out. On.
Yeah, tell me, because I've never.
There are two mixes on my SoundCloud page, which I rarely ever use.
Okay.
But there's a mix on there that I did a couple years ago. I want to say that's just like light kind of tech house, simple, easy shit. And then there's another one that I did with Turk for Fact, which is like really wild and really all over the place.
Yeah, as Second Woman.
Yeah,
right.
The Second Woman mix is really a very good idea.
Yeah, okay,
the kind of stuff that I love. There's tons of breaks in there. There's tons of ambient, dubby, techno stuff, weirdo, outsider, modern stuff, classic IDM. The record, our biggest record, is Telefon Tel Aviv by far, was Immolate Yourself.
Yeah, and
by far.
That was one on B-Pitch.
I was on B-Pitch Control, a German label. And but like the heads, I think still probably like Fahrenheit the most. Like IDM nerds like Fahrenheit the most.
Well, I mean, they were very. Yeah, I mean, it's Fahrenheit to me. It's been years since I've listened to it, but it has like I remember being fairly floaty compared to 90s IDM. Like it was more airy.
Yeah, that was all of that was kind of intentional. We wanted it to feel more ambient in a way. But yeah, that record's more kind of glitchy, and then Immolate Yourself is darker and more synth oriented and more song oriented. It's not instrumental, whereas Fahrenheit.
But it also worked. I don't know if you necessarily DJ the Immolate songs, but there were some remixes.
There were a lot of remixes. There was a Ben Clock remix. There's a Geyser. There's a Misfits. There were tons.
Yeah,
Ellen got everybody. And there was an Operot remix. It was really cool. There was like all the Berlin people like did the remixes for that. It was cool. Ellen did a remix for us later. Matthew Deere did one. It was cool. So yeah, I mean, now on the techno side of things, like I'm helping Dominic Furno do the Vatican Shadow stuff
Okay.
on Oscotone, and then he just released. We did a bunch of music last summer, and he put the 12-inch out on Oscotone, and then we did an EP, almost a full length, really, on his own Hospital.
Mhm.
And so I'm.
When you say we, did you guys? Was
Yeah, we
Bill
did
as
it
the
together.
two?
Yeah,
okay.
we did it together. He comes in and he writes a lot,
Mhm.
and then kind of needs help collating it all and just production side of the stuff, because he's not, the production side isn't really interesting.
Yeah. What was it? Did it come out under just his name?
Vatican Shadow.
Okay.
Yeah. He puts me on there as a producer, which I think is probably the most
Right.
accurate way to say it,
Yeah.
because
But what I'm getting at, and you can help explain this, because the word ghostwriter gets thrown around all the time, or ghost producer,
yeah,
whatever. And I think
mean,
a lot of people don't necessarily know, their impression of it is probably different from what it really is.
If
So
I
maybe
had
because you
written-
do this, maybe you can explain.
Yeah, if I didn't write any of Dominic's stuff. If he if he needed me to write it and produce it and then didn't give me credit, that's ghost producing or ghost writing. But he came to me and he said, "Look, I have these musical ideas. I know what I want to do, but I can't make the shit sound good on a sound system.
Okay.
I want this to sound good in the main room at
So
Berghain."
he already had even like the
Yeah,
the
I mean, he
synth
brought a
the
bunch of-
settings were all
he-
there, the samples were there,
He
everything.
brought a
was-
bunch of sketches and loops and stuff like this, and we just sort of put it together. And he'd say, "Okay, look, I need a keyboard sound that does this, 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 and it sounds like this, and it sounds like this." And so we start flipping through stuff. Say, "Well, how about this? Is this good? Do we start here? Do we start here?" He's like, "I like this, but it's too bright, or it's not bright enough, or it's too airy, or not. Can you dry it up a little
Yeah.
bit? Whatever." And then we kind of get the keyboard sound that he likes, and then he's like, "Okay, hit record," and that's when you see why Dominic Furno is Dominic Furno, because
Okay.
in 5 minutes he literally will just play it.
Oh
He
wow.
just
Okay.
plays the thing on the keyboard on a piano with
All
both
right.
hands.
So that's all I think is I
And
don't
then,
think I don't think anyone expects any dexterity is going into making any of this music. That it's all.
No,
You know-
he's a shred musician. Like, He's
Okay.
a terrific guitar player, and he's a very, very, very. I would say he's as good a keyboard player as I am.
Mhm.
Maybe he's probably better than I am, and I'm known as a keyboard player.
Okay.
I played keyboard in
Yeah.
9 Inch Nails. He's easily qualified to do any of that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's a terrific musician, and he's very, very good at writing tunes and melodies. Like he's like a hook machine.
Yeah.
All those little hooky things and cool little chord changes and stuff in his music. Yeah, it really, he's a melancholist of the top order.
All right. I'm trying to remember what's it like playing in something like Nine Inch Nails.
Surreal.
When 'cause I feel like I saw them a bunch around that time, but I don't remember when were you playing with them?
2013.
2013. Okay, no, that was later than I thought. Okay, no, I definitely did not see you playing.
Yeah. Dude, it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was definitely the weakest player in that band. You know what I mean? Those guys are all like really good players.
Yeah. Who else in the band?
Elon Rubin, Alessandro Cortini, Robin Fink, Trent.
Okay.
At the time, at first it was a 5-piece, then it expanded with Pino Palladino, and then Charlotte Gibson and Lisa Fisher, the singers who came in. But yeah, I had to constantly overachieve just to be able to do the bass line, the basic level of like being able to play these instruments.
Okay.
And I was also the shortstop. I was the one that had to switch instruments the most.
Mm.
So it was a lot of physical rehearsing, like playing guitar every day, playing bass every day, playing keyboard every day,
Yeah.
marimba, saxophone every day.
What record was that? That was
Hesitation marks.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was, I got to be like a pretty decent player at stuff again, which of course I haven't touched any of those instruments in
Right.
5 years or 4 years, so I'm a shit player again.
But
because
you
I've just
did
been-
get to play Head Like a Hole in front of tens of thousands
I
of
mean,
people.
and I can
like-
tell you this much, man, as being like a hella Nine Inch Nails fan when I was a kid, like that's a pretty terrific moment. Like playing Terrible Lie every night is like, it's fucking
Yeah.
awesome. Like it's great. Head Like a Hole, like getting a shout on the chorus and like, yeah, it's awesome. Somewhat Damaged, super fun to play. All that old stuff is so much fun to play. The new stuff I wasn't as familiar with it with later period Nine Inch Nails stuff. So that's where like most of my effort went into like learning
the stuff,
learning
yeah.
those songs and learning like the bass line on Disciplined or The Good Soldier, or like the later stuff that I kind of like, I'd sort of stopped listening to Nine Inch Nails, not for any particular reason, not even that I wasn't interested anymore. I just sort of,
just things.
I was like way more worried about like William Basinski and you know, whatever Autechre was doing and you know, Underground, all that.
Look,
Demdike
there's somebody.
Stare
It was actually Billy Corgan. I heard was on Joe Rogan's podcast this week, and I listened to it yesterday. And he made a good point. He's like, for no control of anybody's anything, anytime, you can't be in the zeitgeist 100% of the time. By definition of what zeitgeist means. So once you're in the zeitgeist, at some point you're going to be out of the zeitgeist. There's a lot of musicians who never make it into the zeitgeist, so they can continue just as kind of steady, you know, they can be Stereolab or something. Like they just, you know, or Autechre, where they have this kind of, although Autechre, I think too, at one point, like they were the zeitgeist, and then it kind of, there was a couple albums in there where you didn't pay attention. And then with this last one, it seemed like a lot of people paid attention again.
Yeah, well, the zeitgeist has to do with playing shows. And Autechre started playing shows in 2015 again after God only knows how many years of not playing shows. And the shows were fucking amazing. So people started yapping about it.
Because I remember seeing them in like, I actually left an Autechre show early in 08, 09. And I couldn't believe I was leaving an Autechre show early, but I was so bored.
Really?
I was just like, I was just not
These
into
ones
it,
from...
which makes no sense to me because like Autechre in like 2001 at DMF was like one of the top 3 electronic things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the zeitgeist is the musical zeitgeist is a motorcycle. There are those who have fallen off of it and those who will fall off of it. You know, I don't know that. I mean, I've never really been. Telefon Tel Aviv was never really in the zeitgeist. We were respected for a minute. You know, we would get press, and but I think that's just because I feel like you guys were all just kind of being nice to us. Like it was kind of like it felt to us like we were like the press was just being really gracious unnecessarily. Like, oh, those sweet little boys, like we should write about their little record, and we were always like super grateful for it and shocked by it and couldn't believe.
Well,
you know.
I'll tell you that's not true, and I know it's not true because I still listen to your records. So it wasn't just being nice.
No,
but
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it was really validating. They're like, hey, like these people are writing about, like, oh my God, look, there's a 2-page spread in Herb magazine. Like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe it. I'd show it to my mom. She'd get all excited.
Right.
You know, it was like that stuff meant a lot. But
getting back to what we were talking about with like, you know, Trent and that, like at that level.
At that level,
like,
it's crazy. I mean, I didn't get nervous before those shows because, which is, well, we were so well rehearsed that there was really no reason to be nervous. But there's always a little bit of like, before a show, like a little bit of, like just kind of you just get a poo feeling in your stomach before the show. Elliot Lipp will call it the show shits. You can cut all that.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Anyway.
I'm going to leave it in. I'm going to call Elliot. I'm going to tell him what you said.
Call Elliot. Yeah,
I'm going to post it on his Facebook page.
Yeah. You just get this like weird feeling in your tummy of just like, ugh. Like, that's why I don't eat before shows. Like, within 3 hours of a show, I just don't eat. Aside from just like burping on the mic. I don't. Anyway. But then before a Nine Inch Nails show, it was like, this is such a well-oiled machine. It's impossible for anything to go wrong because we've rehearsed the living fuck out of this. And also, it's like the in-ear monitors and the crowd is 40 feet away behind barricades, and it's like huge.
Yeah.
And literally, there's, Lollapalooza, there's like 50,000 people out there. You know, we're headlining. It's the first big Nails show in the States after God only knows how. First comeback show. And I can tell you with a certainty that out of those 50,000 people, not a single fucking one was looking at me. They're all looking at Trent. So it was zero pressure.
You didn't invite, like, you know, because it was Chicago, you didn't have, like, a bunch of...
Oh, I mean, I had, you know, Mark Hellner and Sean Kranick and these guys. Like, yeah, I had my...
But you're not worried about impressing your friends.
I'm not like man, my friends are just...
They're
already
like,
minds
look at
blown.
him,
They're
man.
like, dude, it's Eustace. Like, check him out. Like, he's on the Jumbotron. Like, they're all cracking up, you know? They were already minds blown that it even happened. So they didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And the rest of them were all looking at Trent. So it was like a zero pressure gig.
Yeah.
In that way. The pressure of that gig was all the rehearsal that went into it, where it was just, I mean, there was no set schedule
Mhm.
more than 5 hours a day, 6 days a week, which doesn't sound bad at all. But I knew that if I was going to be having all my patches set up and my gear and my rig worked out with my tech and playing the parts right, it was 100 hours a week.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it was 20 hours a day, every
Yeah.
day for me. I'd get home at like 2 a.m. and I'd be back there at 8 a.m.
So how does something like that end then? Because I mean, you did it for just kind of.
I did it for
I mean,
like
I know Trent
better
changes
part of a
all
year.
the time.
Trent he's a guy that can't sit still, and the core lineup of Nine Inch Nails is Trent,
Mhm.
Robin Fink, Alessandro, and Alon. That's the band. I was kind of the fifth guy, sort of from the
Right.
jump. And then he expanded it even more, bringing in Pino Palladino and the singers. And so it was an 8-piece or whatever at that point. And I think at the end of the Tension tour, he was just like, I don't really know full managerial. There were some managerial changes at the time. I think he switched managers. And there was like, we're hemorrhaging cash.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was no way. I don't know this, but being on the tour and seeing like having a general idea of the amount of money that like I know how much that screen costs. I know how much that costs to get made because you can't do this for less than
Sure.
$1 bajillion. I'm sure he probably lost his ass on the first leg of the tour, cut the band in half, got down to brass tacks, and then
Right.
made it up on the second half of the tour
Gotcha.
or the Europe leg.
Right,
or
and
whatever.
it's a lot more expensive to take people over to Europe.
Yeah, I mean, and then and also like, yeah, there were whatever disagreements in the band and stuff like that. Like, it's easier just to like cut it down to.
Yeah. Did you see the show at FYF a couple months ago?
No, I don't go to festivals to see shows.
Okay.
I'd love
Fair
to
enough.
see Nine Inch Nails live again.
It was the best show of the weekend. I mean, I was there.
I have no doubt
there
about that.
working,
I mean,
and they were like a final act on the final night, and you're just like, oh fuck, like I forgot.
those guys, like whatever. Alon Rubin and I argued the whole time we were in the band together, but there's no denying that guy is maybe the best drummer in rock music. I mean, he's insane, and he's an incredible musician.
He's really young too.
He's young. I don't even know if he's 30 yet.
He's not. No, because I interviewed him at FYF. He's not. Yeah,
He might be 28 or 29 now. I don't know. He's young as fuck. He's extraordinary.
What do you guys
musician.
fight over? Like, are you,
just
are you
dumb
allowed
shit.
to? Okay, like, are you
just
allowed to
dumb
have an
shit.
opinion? Because
mean, yeah.
musical stuff.
Absolutely, you're allowed to
Okay.
have an opinion about music. Trent relinquishes a lot of trust and a lot of control to the members of the band, and he'll tell you if it sucks, or he'll tell you if it's good.
Yeah.
There were days where like, we'd work on something all day, and Trent would come in and say like, "This sounds like the fucking Holiday Inn version of Nine Inch Nails. What the fuck are you guys doing? I'm gonna come back in tomorrow, and like this better be good, or I'm just gonna cut it from the set list." And we're like, "Oh fuck," But then we go back in the next day, and he comes in and goes, "Jesus, guys, this is fucking awesome! Like, great work. I mean, did you guys stay up all night doing this? Come on. I mean, it's great. I'm so happy right now." He's really good with like letting you know when you've done well. But yeah, I don't know. Alana and I would argue about dumb shit. I don't remember.
Okay.
I really don't remember.
So I mean, I guess because I'm not. I know we gotta wrap this up soon, but I don't understand. I've never gotten to talk to someone who played in Nine Inch Nails, so I want to dig in here. Like, what does it mean? Because like Trent's doing. Do we on any of the recordings? No, Trent.
Yeah, I was
you
a little
played
bit
on?
on Hesitation Marks. I sang on it a little bit, I think, and did some drum editing. That probably didn't make the cut. I don't think they used that, but.
But what do? You're trying to figure out within the context of like, okay, how much physically can five guys do to recreate
Just
this?
exactly.
What was this? Pro Tool.
How can you make it cooler?
Yeah.
Than
Beef it up.
Right, or how can we,
or whatever you want to do?
Are there ways in which we can change it without breaking the song that make it more sensible live?
Okay.
So that was, man, it was really fun. We'd always have like, a weekly meeting of like, hey, these are the songs we want to learn this week. Let's divvy up parts and see who's going to do what. And I always really liked that process.
Okay.
And then the process of like, okay, I'm going to play bass on this song. All right, well, let me get the patch right.
Mm-hmm.
And I would spend days working on just just the bass sound for one song.
Okay.
Or
Just like comparing it
keep
to the record, or just looking for something in your own.
both. I mean,
Okay.
you'd always start with the record,
Yeah.
get it as close to the record as you can, and then, okay, once you get there, then where can it go? And then that was where the real work started.
Mhm.
You know, it was always pretty easy to get something back to sounding like the record, but Trent rarely wants that.
Yeah.
Like I remember we were learning the Becoming, and usually live the bass player plays it on a bass guitar, and so I learned it that way and was like, let me see if I can just do this on a synth bass, like because I, as a Nine Inch Nails fan when I was a kid, I always wanted to see them play the Becoming and have somebody playing that crazy bass line on a synthesizer. So I learned it, and I like made the sound, and I made it perfectly, and I sampled my Oberheim expander and like did everything exactly right and rehearsed the fuck out of it for like a few days, to the point where I was like metronomically perfect playing this pretty complicated bass part. We played it, I played it, and Trent was like, wow, man, that was amazing. Sounded just like the record. What's the point? I was kind of crushed, like,
Yeah.
oh, dude. All right, well, back to the bass guitar, so it feels more like a band or whatever.
Okay. And what is it? I assume that's probably the most people you've played with. Like if you're like 8 people on a stage or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there was a period of Telephone where it was a 6-piece.
Really? Okay, I don't remember that.
Like Map era.
Okay.
Damon, Lindsay, the singers.
Damon.
Aaron.
Okay.
Lindsay Anderson, me, Charlie, Alfredo, and Brett Calzada,
Okay.
the drummer.
Yeah.
So it was 2 guitars, me playing mostly keys, but sometimes guitar, Fredo playing guitar, Charlie playing bass, sometimes keys, Brett playing drums, and the singers singing.
All right. And last thing, and we do gotta wrap this up. Tell me about bounce music. I just introduced my wife to Big Frida a couple weeks ago.
Here's the deal with bounce music. Everybody thinks twerking is like this new thing, and it's not. It's like twerking has been a thing in New Orleans since the early 90s. Like maybe even before that. But I can't be for certain. But I can't be for sure about that. But I can tell you that, yes, I've been hearing that and seeing it in New Orleans since the early 90s. That's what bounce music is.
Okay.
It's party music. Bounce music is the shit because it's a different take on, again, it's disenfranchised black people innovating something to make a party. Because they've done this how many times now with music?
Yeah.
How many times have African Americans absolutely just shredded on something so awesome and totally changed music because they're just disenfranchised and they're going to have a party or it's their own kind of protest. That's what bounce music is. It's party music in New Orleans. It's people getting sick of living in dangerous neighborhoods and being treated dreadfully by the city government and by the police and it's their way of not fighting back, but just celebrating where they're at.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be like this forever. It's the same thing with techno. It's the same thing with hip hop.
I wish I could. I feel like maybe the last time I really felt some sort of like that, just wide-eyed, mouth agape, was years ago. They booked Big Frida at FYF in between Interpol and like seriously, and it was by design, right?
Of
like,
course.
and Sean gave her this like a great set, like it was like before the headliner, and it was just like this weird thing on the schedule, and there was, and I don't think at that point I'm like, I have no idea what this is, but whatever, and she came out, and it was like,
she probably melted that place to the ground.
It was,
I mean,
completely, like picture like, L.A. circa 2008 or 2009 Interpol fans. It might have been Interpol, but something that that nature. And all of a sudden that came out, and I was like, it's like, how the fuck do I not know about this? How is this so exciting? Where does this go? Like similar to like maybe like when you heard the Plastic Man record or just like no context. And it's like, how the fuck does this exist? How is it so fully formed?
It's because it's been in development for almost 3 decades.
Yeah.
I mean, bounce music started, I guess, DJ Jimmy, late 80s. He was maybe considered the first bounce guy. I don't know.
And it's unfortunate that it hasn't really.
No, I mean, the closest thing to bounce hitting the mainstream, which was sort of a take on bounce, is all the Cash Money stuff. Manny Fresh